Go ahead and get started. So again, I'm Joy Nguyen, Manager of Development and Partnerships with the National Association of Secondary School Principals. We're really excited to partner with hashtag ICANHELP on these admin roundtables. And today we're talking about trends and tricks. And so before we get started, I just want to share a little bit of information about NASSP and some of the opportunities that we have coming up for you to join us in. And so NASSP, we offer a range of benefits and resources for you, our school leaders. As a member, school leaders have access to a vast library of resources, really to make your jobs more manageable and effective. We know that the principalship can sometimes be lonely, can be hard. And so we work really hard to bring you guys together, connect, meet other folks. And so just want to share some of the things that we have to offer that you guys can take part of. We offer research-based practices and practical tools on our website. We also conduct and publish research on critical education topics. And so really this gives you access to the latest information and insights in the field. And we also offer legal support and guidance. And so if you are a member of NASSP, you do have that support if anything happens in your school that you can take part of. And I think one of the greatest benefits of really joining NASSP is the community of school leaders that you can connect with. And so we facilitate network calls and in-person events for you to share your experiences and get support from folks either in your region or outside of your region, people that you can connect with, on different topics. We know that that connection and sharing best practices is really important, talking about what's happening in your schools. And so we really want to have you guys do that so that you can lead your schools and, of course, lead your students. And so we also celebrate and recognize the achievements of great school leaders through various awards and recognition programs. And we actually just came back from our Principal of the Year celebration a few weeks ago here in Washington, D.C., where each Principal of the Year from each state came together and the 2024 Principal of the Year was announced. And so during their time in D.C., the group was able to meet with staff from the Department of Education, where they really used their voice and shared stories and insights from the principalship. And I think that's so important because as a member, NASSP, and for you guys, you can all be advocates for all school leaders as part of that advocacy support and really help shape education policy at the national and state level. So I do want to point that out as something that we do here at NASSP. And lastly, we provide school leaders with access to a wealth of professional and development and growth opportunities. And so if you could bring it to the next slide, this is where we really want all of you on this call, some of your expertise. We know that you are obviously that you want to, of course, be well equipped. And so we know that you're experts because you're here on this call. And so we really want you to sign up for United and submit a call for proposal. Call for proposals are open right now for the United Conference that will be happening in July in Nashville, Tennessee. And this event is actually co-hosted by the National Association of Elementary School Principals and the National and us, NASSP Secondary School Principals. So we are coming together and doing one joint conference, K through 12. And so we really want you to submit a call for proposal. It's open right now until December because we know that you're experts in what you do. And so we want you to also teach your peers and come to the event. And so again, the call for proposals is open until December 8th. And so you can go to theunitedconference.org and submit a proposal. We encourage you guys to submit together if you have something that you want to teach about, to get with somebody in your district and do that. And so again, it's open for another month. And then I think we plan to notify folks early next year to see if they were chosen to come to the conference in July. And so with that, I just want to thank you again for having us be part of this admin roundtable. And so I'm going to introduce you to the moderator of today's panel discussion, which is Thomas Flores. And Thomas is currently at the Hart District as the assistant principal. And so Thomas, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Just welcome everybody. I think we're going to, the goal is just to have an informal conversation about this topic today. And so I hope we all, learn something and we're able to take something back to our school sites and really share some ideas on how to help with these trends. But first, a little bit about Digital for Good. Digital for Good is a nonprofit that educates students and adults about digital citizenship, safety, wellness, and literacy. Through its programs and events, Digital for Good aims to celebrate youth innovation, empower student change makers, and promote digital safety. Digital for Good reaches thousands of students nationwide, and its impact is amplified even further by the innovative train-the-trainer learning model featured in its educational programs. This model empowers students with the tools and training needed to mentor their peers in the safe, responsible use of digital technology. At the foundation of the work is the idea that students are the core of the solution to online toxicity. And when something happens on social media, students are the first to see it. The more we can do as administrators and educators to train, guide, and support our students, the more likely they are to take positive action. What I'd like to do now is introduce our panel members. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Brad Baker. He's a high school principal. Oh, sorry, I'm going in a different order. I'm sorry, but we'll continue with Dr. Brad Baker. He's the principal at Dana Hills High School, and he's currently in San Clemente. And Dana Hills High School is part of the Capistrano Unified School District. And then we can I'd like to introduce Dr. Teresa J. McKenzie. She's a high school principal at Logan Rogersville High School, which is located in Southwest Missouri. And then last but not least, Dr. Marcus Beelin. He's a high school principal at Huntley High. And Dr. Beelin, where is your high school? I was looking for that, I just couldn't find that information.
Yeah, Huntley is just outside of the city of Chicago, northwest suburb of the city, so about an hour.
Okay, thank you. So lastly, we've opened up the chat box or the chat feature to comments and questions from audience members. We'll be holding a Q&A session after the panel discussion. So if you'd like your question to be featured during this segment, please add 2 pound signs to the beginning of your question. Now, in the interest of time, we may not be able to get to all of your questions today, but we may include them, in a future webinar. So without further ado, let's dive into today's discussion on unlocking the power of digital trends. So our first question, what is your school doing to combat social media issues and get ahead of emerging technology trends? Why don't we start with Dr. Baker?
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to learning from all of you. So some of the things that we do, as we know, our job has changed quite a bit due to social media. I've talked to principals, who have retired 10 years ago, and they mention how much more they believe that the challenges these days. As kids, as they leave school, they're continuing to communicate with each other, and sometimes not in the best way, and then that ends up on campus the next day. So some of the things that we're doing in that is it starts with learning and education. The digital citizenship, we do have courses for all students to go through. So that's a big part of how we open the school year, and we do it twice through the entire school year. We also have internet safety workshops for parents. There's a lot where they actually can learn a little bit about how to turn their Wi-Fi off and how to do settings on their iPhones, really to help protect their students from the outside or those who are on the internet to do harm. Another thing we do too is we use a program called LineWise. Now, it's not for social media, but it is for their one-to-one device. So we have Chromebooks at our school, and they do take them home. And so what LineWise does is it's a monitoring program in the background that when things are typed that are inappropriate or threatening in any way, we get notified through that program. And then finally, we use a see something, say something. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I think that came through the Sandy Hook Promise, but we use that as our tip line. So that's another way when students are seeing something on social media that could be harmful to themselves, others, or our school, they can report it and we can address it as quickly as possible. So those are the areas what we're currently, or the efforts we're currently using at Dana Hills High School.
Dr. Baker, just to clarify real quick, you said something about courses, right? And these are courses that students are in.
Not bell to bell courses, but a module that they complete so they can use the internet on campus and use devices. So it's a requirement if we're going to issue them a Chromebook.
Okay, no, thank you. Dr. McKenzie.
Thank you. I've been a principal for a long time, and pagers were the emerging technology when I entered in administration. So things have changed a lot over time. And so the thing that I've seen to be universally true is to empower students to be the one that we work with instead of keep things against or shut down or things like that, as we want to empower them to understand it and learn how to use it appropriately. So through education, through different means, we try and get that out to them. We also have a lot of student voice. And so we use a general assembly with our students. And so we empower them to be ready to report. What I'm finding to be a trend, though, is that they're getting numb, I think, to some things that they see, and they don't see it as alarming anymore. And so that's a thing that I think can be somewhat concerning. We also empower our parents. And so we have parent meetings, and we brought in a national speaker last year and had a session for parents to talk about just the dangers or the awareness they need to have of putting a sophisticated device in the hands of a child. And we're seeing that in our district, younger and younger children getting those devices, and the parents aren't prepared for that. So we're trying to do what we can to push that down.
Hey, Tom, I think you're muted. It's okay. It's okay.
You know what? I think I'm just going to leave it off. We'll see. But Dr. Beelan, you're next. I was just saying we did invite parents to a workshop this year on this topic, and I think parents appreciated that. I would like to see the numbers have been higher, but the ones that were there, I know appreciated that. So yes, so your turn, Dr. Beelan. What can you share with us?
Yeah, it's validating to hear that there are schools both near and far that utilize resources that help us monitor students. We use Lightspeed and Gaggle, both of them. We've kind of been working to try both of them to see which is going to fit our needs the best. We've been using Gaggle for a few years now, especially during the pandemic, which is a monitoring software that, students who type in searches, anything that, hits any keywords that cause a concern for safety, mental well-being, or safety to those of themselves as well as others, or to the school. It's something that we monitor as well, like my entire administrative team. We do a great job, especially during the day. I usually take weekends and the evenings, just so that people can enjoy their families. But it saved lives to have software that monitors the things that we aren't able to see. Many of the students who walk through our buildings, we don't know exactly what is happening to them on social media. And social media can be a battleground. And it's a battleground, what I call the underground network of schools that create almost in a sense a black hole and a sense of hopelessness for our kids. So we also have kind of small modular lessons. We call them Raiderway lessons. We are the Huntley Red Raiders. And Raiderway lessons allow us the ability to get in front of all of our students and give them the tips and tools that they need to be successful in whatever area. We just completed one in October on digital citizenship. We actively have them engage in some of that understanding digital citizenship from the perspective of students. We use real life situations and scenarios that have come up that students can connect with and find some value in understanding. I think the biggest part of it, I use social media on a daily basis. Tons of posts, Twitter, Instagram, not Twitter, X. Birds are gone. The birds are gone, apparently. Instagram, Threads, all of it. Snapchat and we're fighting right now just because that is the underground network where we can't really do the most for our kids. But if kids see me in a large high school of 3,000 kids, if they see me using it appropriately, and they see some of the positive things that get pushed out on social media, our goal is to really try to engage them in the positivity and trying to make it the forefront of their social media, where we really show up on their timeline a lot more than what the negative does. And hopefully that starts to shift some of the conversation that's happening at the dinner table, and parents are also seeing their kids not engage in just some of the negative that we don't see, but also the positive.
You know, you make a good point about being a role model using social media. So thanks for sharing that. We'll go ahead and we're ready to move on to the next question. So in your view, what is the biggest challenge facing today's teenagers with regard to social media and digital technology? And we'll go ahead and start with you, Dr. Beelan.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is not the fact that they have access to social media. I think the biggest challenge is the overwhelming amount of access that they have. And I think it's all about regulation, right? Helping our kids understand the appropriate boundaries and creating boundaries that are appropriate for themselves to manage. My tolerance for social media may be a lot higher than those who get overwhelmed with all of the stuff that they have coming in. You know, it's interesting. We talk about subs and sub shortages. I subbed in a few classrooms. I did an experiment where I asked all of the kids to lay their phones on their desk, and at the beginning of the period to clear all of their notifications. And at the end of the period, I had them turn over their phones a couple minutes before the bell rang and collectively count how many notifications they received from their social media platforms in a period. In a class of 28 students, we had over 540 notifications on their phones. In a 47-minute period, that is absolutely incredible. Whether it was for good, whether it's for bad, who knows what it's for? It's still a notification. And if kids don't have an understanding of the access or understanding of the boundaries that they need to create for themselves, we as educators need to help them do that. So that kind of lends itself to the conversation of cell phone and cell phone use within a classroom or in a learning environment. But we want kids to also, if they can't manage it in a classroom, we know they can't manage it at home when they're doing homework or needing to study for finals or needing to engage in activities outside of school that can help grow them, not just have their head stuck into a technology, into some form of technology. So it's all about the regulation. I think that's the biggest challenge we have for them.
You know, at my school, we're in a junior high, and cell phones aren't allowed. You have to keep them in their backpack turned off. And to your point, Dr. Butte, when some you know, depending on where they're at in the steps and the progressive policy we have, those phones end up on my desk. And if I don't turn that phone off, it's just buzzing the whole time it's here. So I can relate to that. Dr. McKenzie, what can you share with us regarding these challenges?
I would agree with Marcus. I really think self-regulation is one of the biggest challenges because they can't stop, right? And so they're really struggling with that. But I think what I've seen, I was able to go on a student trip and to watch them deal with the anxiety and pressure to hit those streaks or to make sure they checked everything or do all that stuff. And that was real. And I thought, I almost laughed. I'm thinking this is kind of comical that they're staying up really late to make sure they hit all these streaks, because we went to Europe. And so we're in a totally different time zone. But yet they were still had to hit that because they were it was really bothering them. So that is a real concern. I think my other concern besides anxiety and self-regulation is independent thought. I see them get into a channel and they're kind of in this like-minded group of people, and they can't independently think or develop their own viewpoints of things. I think where they channel themselves. I think social media is designed to narrow your viewpoint, and I really worry about those independent thinkers and if they're able to pull multiple sources for information as they grow up as adults.
That's a concern. Yes, Dr. Baker.
Now, the challenge that has been actually shared with me from students is really social comparisons. Just for them, they're seeing the the filters and the kids in Hawaii and I'm not, and so that can contribute to this mental health concerns and such as anxiety, right, depression, low self-esteem. We know what's on social media is filtered and sorted and selected, and it's not real. And I think it's our job to really help at schools, ensuring that students are valued, seen, heard, and that they're enough. Because I think social media, just like commercials have in the past, have highlighted, the Marlboro Man, super cool, right? So you should smoke, or whatever influences there were through our time. Social media is doing it at such a faster rate, as Marcus shared. And so I believe it's our job is to help educate and ensure that students have those personal relationships with teachers and with staff. And so they are seen for who they are in the real time and not the underground. So when they start feeling that way, they have someone to come to talk with. And because our kids are great and they are enough. And when you start comparing yourselves to the magazine covers, in which a lot of us, I'm dating myself, did in the past, now they're doing it at a rapid hyper rate. So you could see how that could be a challenge for a young person who's just trying to understand who they are and where they fit.
I think the social comparison's always been around for years and years and years and years, but now, when they come to school, when I was a kid, I came to school and I compared myself to everybody else, but when I went home, it wasn't in my face like it is now when these young ones are on social media 24 hours a day. So that's a good point. Yeah, we'll take our next question. So artificial intelligence, AI, is currently a trending topic. More students have been using AI applications such as ChatGPT, not just for entertainment, but for schoolwork as well. And this is interesting, right? So should AI be a cause for concern, or should we embrace it? And I know there's always different, answers to that, different viewpoints. So we'll start with Dr. McKenzie.
I'm in a viewpoint that I want to embrace it, because it's like the next Google. Like when Google came out, everyone was freaking out about, oh, we can just Google the answers or things like that. So it's the next thing, right? So it's going to keep evolving. And so I think we've just got to be okay with it. And I think we had a huge PD session on ChatGPT a couple of weeks ago, letting our teachers know, hey, this is how it works, this is how you can use it. And we haven't opened it up for students in our school, but we're having that conversation because we might as well embrace it and acknowledge that it's there instead of just denying it and putting our head in the sand. I'd rather be in the forefront of that, because it's not going to go away. It's only going to get more sophisticated. But to have those really ethical conversations about, whose original work is this? Who are these good ideas? Can we evaluate the credibility of it? And so that's kind of the standpoint that we're in. Obviously, when you're in a building of a variety of generations, everyone has varied opinions. So trying to get the whole staff on board and working through that together has been a unique challenge.
Dr. Baker.
Yeah, I mean, it's here. So, there are safeguards that need to be put up, but we need to embrace it. And, I'm an optimist, and I really believe that this next thing, and I think it's a little different than the next thing, but I believe that this is going to help us really reassess how learning happens. I think it's going to get us moving our curriculum and our assessments into more personalized, detailed, more critical thinking, more maybe standard grade-based ways of if students understand content or not. I do know it's an amazing tool. I'm already seeing my teachers use it to create agendas, units. There's some amazing sites out there already to help teachers build rubrics and common assessments, and all those types of things. So there's going to be a major learning curve as it progresses, and education, just like all these other businesses and industries, are going to have to adapt, right? That's the biggest form of intelligence, is how to adapt, and we'll need to do that by modeling, positive practices, and then again, being careful. Right now, I came into a situation where a teacher ran it through a AI detector, and it came out as plagiarized. And then when we did further review, these AI detectors are not 100%. They're very faulty. They're not there yet. So I think it begs the question, we need to have conversations with our students before we make AI detectors judge and jury. And so things like that, I think we'll have to continue to learn from, whether it's mistakes or from professional learning.
Dr. Belin?
So AI is probably one of the most interesting topics, yes, in education, yeah, across the world, right? But to be honest, I think this takes me back. I was doing some research a little while ago because I was talking with some teachers. There's some people who still haven't heard of ChatGPT, which shows you the rock that they are unfortunately under. I'm trying to get them from underneath it, because there is so much that AI has done and can do. That ultimately can save time, right? The one thing we never can get back is time. And AI is coming. It's here. It's been here. In 1966, it was Eliza, which was like a human chat bot, or it was a chat bot that introduced themselves as like a therapist. And they talk about, I mean, you think of all of the messenger bots that have come through the ranks. All of that is artificial intelligence. It's just a matter of, for the now, what it looks like. ChatGPT scratches the surface. It is the very tip. It's the highest piece of ice on the top of an iceberg of what is out there that students are using. And if we think that if we shy away from it, we ultimately are putting ourselves kind of in the slow lane of learning. I'm going to be honest. I know we're recording this. This is going on YouTube. This is for NASSP. I'm just putting it out there. I use ChatGPT. It's a pinned tab on all of, I open my email, my calendar, ChatGPT, and then our other school apps that I need to be able to monitor throughout the day. ChatGPT has given me utilizing prompts to be able to just get started on composing a very challenging letter that I need to send, right? I don't take it and copy and paste it, right? It needs to definitely fit the mold of what needs to be stated to either parents or the students, or to a parent who's upset or in celebration of something, to just have the words on paper, and for me to then take it, process it, and reorganize it the way that I want. That's given me the starting point. I don't use it as a crutch. I use it as definitely a stepping stone and a tool to really save some of that time that I could never get back. I can spend time either thinking about it, or I can spend time processing it and fine-tuning it to say what I need it to say.
We apologize. We weren't trying to make this a promotion for ChatGPT, but
No.
thank you, Dr. Belin.
No, we're not. They are not. Let me just put a disclaimer. They are not sponsors for this. But it is, since it was in the question, I'm like, hey, this is a tool. So,
I've heard that from different people. I agree with you. I agree with all of you. I think it's here. It's a tool. We need to embrace it. And I also think it gives us an opportunity in the classroom for teachers to really rethink some of their assessments and how they're assessing and testing students' original thought. So I think no, I think you're right. I think we all just need to embrace it. So,
and Tom, I'll say this off of here's a concrete piece, right? Had my wife works in elementary school, and teacher pulled up ChatGPT, took an article, dropped it in to AI, and asked for it to rewrite it at a second grade level, because that was where the student was, and it worked. It didn't change any of the concept, but it was something that helped the student now progress forward in an assignment that they would have been held back by, because we would have had to do all of the different accommodations. And I'm not saying that this is the only one. I mean, there's tons of things out there, but like, it is, if we can help students in the moment, we have very limited time with them.
True.
So we need to make sure we maximize the time that we do, and let's not get stuck on some of the antiquated practices and processes of how we process information for our kids, but allow the things that can do it for us to help us get there quicker.
Agreed. We're ready to move on to the next question. Thank you. So different families have their own rules and guidelines for technology use at home. What kind of advice or resources do you share with students, parents, guardians to help them create and establish these rules? We'll go with Dr. Baker.
I would say the main thing is open communication, right? Is really talk with your kids. Know what's on their phone. I think educate yourself on the parent controls, right? Set a digital curfew. I can't tell you how much I would appreciate if there was a 10 o'clock social media digital curfew. It would probably handle about 90% of any of the concerns that come to us the next day. Anytime I get a report or our APs get reports of something happening, the night before or days before, it's always 11:30, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. So I would highly suggest parents to get to learn about the internet or the iPhone safeguards or whatever cell phone safeguards with social media or any device safeguards. And you can do that with Wi-Fi, right? Or any ways to limit that screen time. So digital curfew, open communication.
Dr. Beelan.
I think really inviting them into a space to just talk about what are their challenges, right? My challenges here in my school community are going to be different than Teresa's or Dr. Baker's or Derek's, or it will be different just depending on the access. And so the problems that I have, I may cater to them by giving them tools and resources and so forth. Some of it is just talking about it, right? Bringing people together. There's a lot of resources that we can bring in. If it's more student focused, or if parents just are completely oblivious of what's happening with students, and it's bringing students and parents to the conversation. Kids sometimes don't know how to just talk about it with their parents, right? Personal story, I got a 10-year-old at home, and she sneaks to watch YouTube. And I'm like, don't sneak to watch YouTube. It's okay that you're watching. I just want to make sure that what you are doing and the stuff that you're engaging in on your computer, and as you start to navigate the technological world, having a cell phone, having a computer, having access to all of these things, I don't want you to hide it. I just want to be able to talk about, what are your challenges? What are you seeing? What are your successes? Because the way that I think about it as a 36-year-old high school principal is going to be completely different than a 10-year-old elementary school 5th grader. You know what I mean? And so I think, again, allowing our students to be able to share in a space of, what do you want your parents to help you with? Or what can you help your parents with to keep them moving, right? We help our grandparents, right? When iPhones and so forth came out, or when Zoom came out, right? For the pandemic, we were trying to teach them how to use it because we needed to communicate. And that was what we did. And our kids can teach us so much more. And so I think just creating a floor and allowing that conversation to organically happen will be most beneficial.
Thank you. Dr. McKenzie?
What I'd add to the conversation is just quality sleep. We really struggle with our teenagers getting enough quality sleep. And so anytime we have an opportunity to be in front of parents, we always encourage them to know where the cell phone is at night. We really encourage them to separate that from the child, from the teen, to allow them to get some quality sleep. Like, they are not sleeping because it's just a constant, it's just constantly in their ear all the time. So we just try and encourage them to help them to get some better sleep. They're young people, their minds are still developing. And I know that is a huge thing for parents. A lot of times they shut their door and don't connect with their kids. And, we're seeing at the younger ages, a lot of attention deficit, with our elementary kids coming in. just because parents are on their phones too much. And so, our elementary principals are talking to their parents about, put your phone down and interact with your child. And so we're trying to have those conversations so everyone understands the effect between the parent and the child, either the parent's use or the teen's use, so they can get the quality time, a family time together, or get that quality sleep. So those are a few things that we hit on.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a tough one because everyone's situation is different. Everyone's culture is different. The time parents have with their kids is different. When parents ask me, because my kids are growing up now, I don't, from my own personal experiences, I wish I would have monitored their usage a little more. I felt like when I was a kid, no one was monitoring my pager use, so I gave them that independence. But my wife, she was much better at monitoring their usage, and so yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because all three of you had great answers, but they were all a little bit different. But I think they were all great answers. I think just really depends on so many factors when it comes to giving families, different advice. And so I think we have one more question. And what are your best tips for handling an investigation of a social media issue? Maybe I might have thrown that one in there, being an assistant principal. I'm not sure, I don't remember. But how do you guys handle your investigations? What have you found the most challenging? Maybe what you could have done differently, but what tips can you share with all of us? We'll go with Dr. Beelan.
I laugh at this one because this is the challenge. Because every
I'm not putting you guys on the spot or anything.
every situation is so unique. I always have the thought of just assume positive intent, right? If you go, even the things that you see, that there's so many opportunities for kids to take something and recreate it, and it may not be the original content. They may not be the creator, the thinker, or they just reposted something, right? It's going into it with positive intent and understanding that you are going to find yourself in a rabbit hole. And going into that rabbit hole, it is really having open dialogue and conversation. But every step of the way, knowing that that students who are involved in these issues, it's every student that I can have a conversation with of what the expectation is for you using social media, how it can hurt, how the impact of their words, the impact of their actions, the impact of whatever they contributed. I think that's the biggest tip of handling it, is really encouraging our kids to understand the why behind it, not the fact that they did something wrong, right? Or not the fact that they are holding on to information or whatever, not the fact that they're a part of the investigation, but just understanding. And that's part of digital citizenship, is really helping them understand the why behind it in hopes that they won't do it again, not just trying to get through the situation itself.
Thank you. Dr. McKenzie?
Yeah, this is a hot topic, just because every situation is so different. But some things that I kind of process through is that there's always more to the story. So, I have a kid come flying in, show me their phone and what a kid said to them, but then they don't want to share what they said to them prior to that, right? So there's always more to the story. And so trying to get that full picture of what brought that energy or where that came from is really something that I try to really think about. And then the other thing I'm trying to do, and I can't say I'm an expert, but I really want to try and have dialogue with kids ahead of time. So when something does occur, you have allies, you have students out there that we're willing to share. And we do have great kids, and they'll come and notify someone in some way that, hey, something's up, like this isn't right. And so those tips are valuable. We've got to have kids on our side. They got to be on our team, because we can't solve it by ourselves. They're the ones that have the tools, they're the ones that see it. So trying to create that alliance with them, I don't know the right word to use with kids, but you're trying to have them on our team, because we're trying to help all kids. And so that's some things that we try and do, is look at the full story. And then I think the thing that really gets me is the kids get so numb to the bad things. And I'm getting shocked by that. I don't know if I'm showing my age a little bit, but the things that I see really just shock me, but they're so numb to it because they see it all the time. It's not a shocker to them. And so it's kind of alarming, I think, the things that they get numb to over time, or that are even issues for them, that may be issues for adults or parents that see them. For the kid, it may not be that big an issue. So those are just a couple things that I always think about.
Dr. Baker?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Teresa. Partnering with your parents, building those positive relationships, giving those lines of communication, whether it's a coffee with the principal or a way to communicate in a fluid manner. But the feet on the floor are our students, and they want to be safe. And so, building those positive connections and relationships and that trust with our students, when our teachers are doing it, our principals doing it, our admin, our custodial staff, when they are building those trust connections, when something's not right, they will more likely share than not. So I think that's an important thing. The other thing is, and I think this is more on the policy level, is defining clear policies, right? Having something that we can lean on, and that might need to be looked at every single year as things change so rapidly. The other thing, the challenge is preserving evidence. A lot of times we have people bring stuff, but it's only one side of the story, and then things get deleted, and that's the rabbit hole Marcus was talking about. So whatever you can get as fast as you can get is important, and then make sure that we're respecting privacy laws and ethical standards when we're doing investigations, and being impartial. I think these are all the challenges, but they're the best practices. But when it comes down to it, again, building those relationships and having those systems of reporting are going to be a game changer as well.
Oh, thank you. A lot of our problems have decreased dramatically this year because being at the junior high, we were able to eliminate cell phone usage here at school, and it has helped. But I think you guys have hit on this. I think putting this information out there, reminding students the proper uses of social media, and we have to at times remind them what the consequences are, but remind them social media can be used for positive things. Having those systems of reporting, we have a hotline number that they can use to report some of these issues on social media. So, it can be challenging, but the only last thing I want to share regarding this is these investigations take time, and we learn to ask the right questions, a lot of questions, and we just have to be prepared that when these things come across our desk, they are going to take time, and we do have to have some patience. So, well, thank you. We'd like to move on now. We're not sure if any of our participants today have any questions for our panel members, and we do have a few minutes that we'd like to commit to that. I'm not sure, maybe we can just put some questions. Actually, why don't we just unmute, and if you have a question, let's try it that way. If it gets too challenging, then we can mute ourselves and put some questions in the chat. But if you'd like to unmute, or maybe do both, put a question in the chat. I know our panel members would like to answer some questions if we can. So we'll give it just a minute or two to give you all the opportunity.
This is Derek Lawson, California. I do have a question for the panel. I'm just curious as to what you're finding with not just students, but when you're attempting to communicate with parents, and we have the diverse amounts of platforms, parents that are tech friendly, parents that are tech adverse or fearful. What are the various ways that you found successful in being able to communicate with parents that don't overwhelm you, because you can't possibly do 15 different platforms every time you want to send out communication?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll hop in. I manage all of our social media here at the high school. Currently building a student team, content creators and social media influencers. that allowed them to really build a portfolio for themselves, of like, hey, a school our size, there's a bunch of communication that goes out. We've limited, just random emails, and just over time brought everything to either newsletters. We have social media platforms that manage our software in a sense, or manage our platform. So we can create one post that goes out to all of our social media networks. Because we find that a lot of our parents are all over the place as well, in terms of there's some who just want to hear somebody's voice. So we do everything from robocalls to text, to give them a link to our newsletter. We do utilize software that takes all of our content in our newsletter and translates it into the languages that they would like to read their communication in, as well as our district communication through PowerSchool. So we have a number of them. I don't feel like it's overwhelming to manage, because I know when something does happen, our emergency procedures, when we debrief about something, we talk about, okay, who's going to be responsible for creating the post that goes out, right? It can be a multitude of people, but I think it's being mindful, right? Creating parameters. We can't do it all, but finding out where your families live the most, and specifically cater to those, and just be open and transparent about, like, hey, if something gets posted, here's where it's going. Here's where the important stuff, like, everyone needs to know, and here's where not everybody's on social media. So here's where some of the stuff lives, but that's the secondary area of posting. That makes sense.
Go ahead.
I use multiple platforms as well. In my 8 years of being a principal, I run Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I have a TikTok, believe it or not. Kids talk me into that, but it's a lot of fun. I jump it on. But what I found is, I do have the same thing where when I post information or help tell the story of our school, because I'm a true believer, if you don't tell the story, someone else will tell it for you, and it won't be the right story. So I make sure to post a few times, at least a day, things that are positive accomplishments, classrooms, classroom work, stuff that's going on. But what I found is Instagram kind of is a mix of students and parents. Facebook is all parents. Twitter is everything athletics. And then TikTok's all kids, and Snapchat, like Marcus said, is a whole nother thing. So, but it is important to use. Again, this job has changed. We need 4 to 5 layers of communication, whether it be the email. We have talking points, which is a push notification. We just recently adopt that, which is helpful. But yeah, when you think of the communication and the needs for a large high school, it's enormous. And so having multiple layers and being consistent, and then modeling that good social media behavior and consistency, I think is a great byproduct of principals, using social media as a communication platform.
Brad, to add to that, I appreciate you talking about the consistency. What sparked the thought of being consistent is that it doesn't always have to be news, right? Everything we can say everything is news, but it doesn't have to be information seeking. The people who are going to engage in the social media platforms are going to be the platforms that they see themselves the most. So we post a lot of pictures of kids doing stuff. Like if we're going into classrooms, principals, if we're going into classrooms, or teachers want to invite us in for something, like take pictures while you're in there and show, like, hey, our kids are out building soccer sheds right now, or soccer shelters on our JV soccer field. So I'm going out there, I'm posting something real quick, like, look at what our kids are doing. We've had trades that have picked up on this who are like, that is awesome. And so there's things that connect to the school and stem from what we post. But ultimately, we look back and we see our high school yearbooks, right? For me, the yearbook is the yearbook, and that will stand the test of time. But people don't go back to their yearbooks and look and be like, hey, look at that picture. What they do is they scroll back in their social media and be like, hey, look at this. Kids who have graduated 3, 4, 5 years ago look back at their high school career through the lens of their social media. They want to see themselves. So we got to get as many kids out there as possible doing work. We got to get parents out there seeing, like, look at all of the events that we were at, that we attended. They're going to engage in that more because they saw themselves.
I agree. It's the digital diary of your school, and I couldn't agree more. And it's just, I think it's so important, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Like you said, it could be, you visit a math classroom today and Mr. Smith is knocking out of the park with a lesson, an Angles lesson or whatever. What a parent told me is, I so appreciate you take the time to do it, because when I pick my kid up and I ask, what'd you do at school? They always say nothing. And now I can say, nuh-uh, because I saw the post from school. And I saw all the cool stuff that's happening. So like I said, you got to tell your story, and if it's accurate to the student experience, it's going to stick, and you're going to increase your school's climate and change culture as well.
Well, I want to thank our panelists for being here today. Thank Joy for being here as well from NASSP, and just thank all of our participants from taking time out of their busy schedule today, because I know it's not always easy to take some time away from school, right? The students, the teachers, the parents. I was in a meeting till 12:30 and I was like, I need to go. So we really appreciate all of you just taking the time to be here today. But before you guys go, if I can just get just one more minute of your time. I want to bring everyone's attention to, the important upcoming event. In December of last year, the FBI issued a national public safety alert citing a horrific spike in online sextortion cases involving children and teens. U.S. law enforcement received more than 7,000 reports related to the online exploitation of minors in 2022, resulting in at least 3,000 victims across the U.S. We as administrators, we have a responsibility to protect our students, and while the numbers may seem daunting, there are steps you can take today to stay informed on this issue and work towards its prevention. On December 5th, Digital for Good will be teaming up with Snapchat to host an essential workshop on the prevention of teen sextortion. Whether you're a school principal, superintendent, educator, or parent, we strongly urge you to join us in December. You can sign up for free using the link that's in the chat now. And as a thank you gift for everyone for attending today, we're also offering free copies of Digital for Good's Sextortion Defense Resource. You can download this resource for free using the link on the slide. You can also get your entire campus educated on the dangers of sextortion by booking a presentation with Digital for Good, who will provide you firsthand with the tools you need to help prevent your students from becoming victims. And both links are posted in the chat. So lastly, I just want to encourage everyone to sign up for our next Admin Tech Talk on February 6th, which coincidentally is my son's birthday. Actually, my wife's birthday. My son's on the 9th, which will feature brand new topics for discussion. You can also scan the QR code on your screen to get updates on even more great events and free resources from Digital for Good. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I know I found it helpful. I really think this informal way of talking about topics that are important today really just makes it a lot more easy for us to access these ideas. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. Thank you.